Everybody got a coffee, some banana bread. I was up early making the banana bread. So, yes, first of all, thank you for joining us. I'm John Redman, and I'm the founder and CEO of Bosco. I'd like to thank Lunio and the guys from Lunio for hosting us this morning. As I'm sure you'll agree, lovely space here. As we're going through the different sessions, if you've got questions, we want it to be interactive. We have had quite a few of you send questions in advance of the panel, and yeah, just sort of go for it. AI is going to change the world. It's going to take away our job. We're all going to be out of business. It's going to do everything for us. But what we want to try and do today is cut through some of that noise and work out, well, what does it really mean to you, whether you're a brand or whether you're an agency? What could you be doing different tomorrow using what's available now? So rather than the 7 million messages you get on LinkedIn with the 700 cheats to make you £1 million next week, we're hopefully going to give you something practical and useful. And then if you want to hang around for more coffees or anything at the end, feel free. I know some of us are off to Podge later, which is run by the Drum and the guys from Digital Podge. We'll sort of kick off and get into it. What we're going to go through, we've got Roy here, who's our keynote speaker, and he's not just the eye candy, he's also got some very smart brains in there. Then we've got Dan. Where's Dan? Dan's going to give us his view. We've also got Leo, who's our Lunio representative, and he's going to talk about bad bots. So what are these bad bots? So these Russian bad bots that are coming to get you. And then we've got Emily, who's our director of product at Bosco, who's going to talk about how there's some practical use of AI within the data you've already got. Right. So, and then we're going to have a big Q&A. To save your questions to the Q&A, unless it's a really pertinent one for the speakers, but get the questions for Q&A. We've already got plenty, but it's better if the questions are coming from you guys. We are live streaming, so the camera's there. So if you want to avoid it, it's just speak over there. So if you're meant to be somewhere else, make sure you can be clicking on the camera. So I just thought I should probably introduce who I am. So I've been doing this for 25 years. A lot of my friends from uni got into property and got into be accountants, and I got involved in sort of software and the internet. I've had the pleasure of working with and helping some of these brands go online. I have Jaguar Land Rover sell their first car online. We used to help Argos go from being a catalogue business to being one of the 57 retailers. Through that journey, I've been fascinated by how we can use technology to make things easier for our teams and for our clients. And this is sort of where we've ended up with Bosco today. I also, like Dan, not as much as Dan, get asked to talk on the telly sometimes. Although I've stopped talking on GB News, because everybody said I'm a bit too right-wing. And it wasn't good for my profile. Yeah, so that's me. Feel free to have a chat and connect. But today's just about discussion and everything. But when I set up Modo 25, which is our in-housing training strategy business that sits behind Bosco, I met my co-founder and business partner on a charity bike ride. So that's the founder of Skyscanner, Bonamy Grimes. And when we set this business up, he thought, well, I want to help you solve this problem. But if we're doing this, and we're going to hopefully make loads of money out of AI, because they reckon one of the biggest problems is going to be with AI's greed. Right, that's going to be part of the problem. We thought, well, if we're going to do this and we're going to make some money, we want to do something good with it. So we actually, there's a slightly bigger picture behind our business. I'm not going to ask you for some money, don't worry. But we actually named our agency side of our business, the in-housing agency, after one of the 10-year-old girls at an orphanage in Uganda, which we support. So I also have a cycling adventure business, and we're cycling from London to Sydney over 25 years. We're going in 2 weeks, if any of you want to come. We're cycling from northern Turkey to Georgia. It's 600 miles in 6 days. And every year we raise £250,000 from our business and from the bike ride to fund 280 kids in Uganda. So we are trying to do something good, but we are hopefully going to make some money out of AI as well. And we actually named our software after the guy who runs the charity. So there's a whole sort of thing we're doing with that. Anyway, it's not really about me. This is more about the content. But before we get into this, last time we did a similar event in London, and Gordon was going to come. Gordon's the content chief editor-in-chief of The Drum, and he was going to come, but he's in New York. So he sends his apologies. We were trying to live stream it, but he didn't fancy the time difference. So we're going to share a video of where he asked ChatGPT to write a song in the style of Johnny Cash about the death of the copywriter. Right, so we're going to start off on a little bit of a light-hearted note. We're going to play Gordon video. We did do this live before. We were going to share that video, but the sound's a bit crap. So I'm just going to put him up, and then we will get into it. Hopefully this works. There's the sound. Let's check this. Where's that? Yeah. Is that that's on the right speaker, isn't it? Maybe there's a bit of like. Not missing anything yet. Let me try to see. Will I go on to the main one?
So use the college.
Yes. Wow, okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that's right before. Sorry, one job.
Johnny Cash. I'm sitting in this corporate cell, thinking about the future, but can't help dwell. AI's taken over, and it's plain to see. It is going things out. Misery. AI is coming for copywriters. Gonna take her job. Gonna take her living. No more Christmas. Anything. We are gonna disappear. Thanks, Chris. We used to be the masters of our craft, but our skills are just a thing of the past. AI can write it better, faster, cheaper, leave us behind like a ship without a keeper. AI is coming for copywriters. Gonna take our jobs, gonna take our living. No more wordsmiths, no more penning. We're gonna disappear. We'll be like the prisoners on Folsom. Did time for a crime he did not commit. This is so dark. Did not commit sorry. Oh, I lost the place. But instead, no, I'm gonna. No more stealing, no more killing. Latest bet. We will be guilty of
Just being human.
being guilty of being human, guys. That's a crime, okay? So if you are a copywriter and you're feeling low, remember that you're not alone. Yes, come for us all. It's very true. But we'll keep on erecting.
We have to be so proud.
What Gordon's actually been doing at the Drum, he's been asking his editors to submit articles written by AI without telling him, and articles they've written themselves, and he's trying to work out which ones, and he can't always spot them, which in itself is reassuring, but reassuring in the quality of the AI, but scary in a whole other sense. So, right, I'm going to hand over to Roy, who's going to wow, shock, inspire you all with what we think is happening. So.
Hello, are you okay?
Yep.
Good morning, Manchester. Second time in 2 weeks, sunny both times.
That's unusual.
Have you tried to basically keep you away from it? Is it the thing about Manchester, it's actually sunny all the time? And I've never been called eye candy. That's pretty good. That's a good start, isn't it? Generative AI. So I'm Roy, I'm from Synthetic Agency, we're an innovation agency, working in generative and emerging technology. It's been an interesting 7 months. Been very busy. Has anyone not used ChatGPT?
Or doesn't want to admit it in this room.
Or doesn't want to admit it?
Yeah.
I was at a talk that John was at as well a few weeks ago that I did. And one poor soul put his hand up and said, me, I think he was in the wrong place, frankly, quite sure. But he was brave enough to admit it. But we've all used it. We all know it's a massive technology that's come to the forefront very quickly. In the last sort of 7 months, we've seen, gosh, all sorts of things. We've seen the Pope in Balenciaga. Did you see that one? In fashion, that was great. We've seen big tech scrambling around like nobody's business, trying to catch up with what's perceived to be a small startup backed by Microsoft. We've seen billions of pounds of investment come in. We've seen acres in newsprint and media panic, all sorts of things happening, right? Which is quite unusual for a new technology that's it's really 7 months old. Obviously, it's older than that. But we're going to talk a little bit about what that means for us as businesses and how that kind of works. Now, this is actually an agenda, but it looks like a little bit like a bad emo band lineup. My dog and up on the tube tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing Make It Rain and Less Terror. How about you guys? Acronyms a go-go are off this, by the way, because we're not about jargon here. So we'll skip that one. But basically, over the next 20 minutes, just a few examples of use cases, how we're seeing the landscape, the ROI that we're seeing, and then some talk of resources. So they can kind of useful, and they'll ask questions after. You know when you put your slides together, and then you think, is that a good idea? So this is 7 months ago, right? This is when we started thinking, wow, okay, this is computer vision. I think it was a character AI. And then you've got beaten up GTA Roy, you've got Mad Max Roy, and you've got 3 pints and I really would Roy. But we started seeing this, a few months ago with these tools and started thinking, wow, this is starting to become a bit more interesting in terms of commercial use and kind of technology and the outputs you can get from it. So we started getting these kind of little digital twins and avatars and so on. Started to think about technology and how it might work. So describing Gen AI, I like to start with the mum test. So this is my family. I'm literally on all the demographics. I think I missed out millennials. So I've got Gen Alpha, I've got X, my daughter, I've got Gen Z, my daughter, Gen X, my wife, and my mother-in-law is 75. And this is what they said. So asking about Gen AI. So interestingly, you can see the sorts of things they're using by someone from South Park. Now, I know it's not a parenting intervention, maybe it should be because they're only 12. My daughter, I've seen this on Snapchat, he's stopping on me, so he's my wife, indeterminate age, thought it was a PlayStation game, and my mother-in-law, who's 75, is brilliant, Irish, loves whiskey, smoking, and horses. I really don't properly care what she said. There's your demographics right there. Obviously, it's wider than that, but mum test is always important. So definition, without going too much into it, so classic or traditional AI, really very good at classification and data sets. Generative AI, because of the large language models and the size of these models, is very good at predicting what comes next. So a simple way of putting it, not quite the same thing, is predictive text on acid. Don't quote me on that, but that's kind of often how we talk to our clients about it in the first instance. And obviously prompts are the interface, and probably why it's become so popular so quickly is because it's very easy to access and very easy to understand. So generative AI is a subset, and broadly speaking, it's a neural network, uses deep learning and machine learning to make those amazing predictions and to make it feel like it's sentient. It's not yet, but we'll talk about it later. So there's the definition. Panic, right? You've seen the acres in newsprint. And of course, on two sides of this, there's the maximalists on one side, the doomers on the other, and kind of somewhere in between. But, you know, panic isn't a new thing, selling newsprint isn't a new thing. There's a fantastic website come across called the Pessimist's Archive. Go and have a look at it. And it's basically showing this kind of moral panic around technology over the last couple of 100 years. And you can see it from, there's one from 1863 about machines taking over. There's bicycle insanity, which I think John might be interested in his mad ride to Sydney. No one wanted the automobile, let's get a faster horse. The faithful donkey is passing, God bless Godwin, and so on. So this is not new. Have a look at that, it's quite interesting. Now, of course, whether or not it is, and the time thinks it might be, the end of humanity, we'll see. I don't personally believe. So why fuss? Well, it's quite unusual for a technology like this to be as adopted as quickly. And I think in 2 months to reach 100 million users hasn't been done before. Now, you might argue, of course, that some of these earlier examples were maybe when there wasn't as many people maybe on the internet and so on, but still, 2 months to 100 million users is unusual. It doesn't come across very often. And it's been done in 2 months. I think that currently, or certainly in March and April, ChatGPT was the 21st biggest, most visited website in the world. Netflix, LinkedIn, eBay, 17th now this month, and that's quite big, right? When you think about it. It's not quite as big as Pornhub. So you know who you are, right? So it's big, right? The point being, I'm going to be clear, but if so many people are using it and interacting with it, our customers are, our businesses are, our clients are, so we need to be on top of this as agencies. We really kind of at the forefront of this, and that's what we're doing. So big. How smart is it? Now, we are talking about OpenAI here because OpenAI, who own and proprietary technology of ChatGPT, did start out as a non-profit investment for an open business. They're not now, they're the opposite of that, obviously. So what we can tell from things like previous models like GPT 3.5, which was their previous model, and before, is the increase in the ability of the neural networks to do kind of more complex things. So, for instance, passing the bar exam, AP tests, A levels, you can see the green to the blue, how quick it's gone from 20 to 40 up to nearly 100. So it's human kind of level. Interestingly, not as clever on things like AP English language and literature. So the creative parts, but very good at the binary stuff. But again, if you spend any time using GPT and some of the other tools and the other models, you know that it's pretty smart. And of course, as a pre-trained transformer, it's fixed. And the older version of the GPT-4 we've got currently, which is up until September 2021, which now has web access to actually. Not forgetting that's probably about 7 or 8 months old. So if you're a little bit scared by it now, it's not the newest one. Obviously, it's nearly a year old. So when GPT-5 comes out, we might be in trouble. So what's in it? Question we get a lot. Now, there's a few answers to this really, but OpenAI in general, the GPT, from what we can tell from the previous version, it's the internet. So in essence, that's Common Core, things like Reddit, book boxes, Wikipedia. And it does mean, of course, that it's the internet. The internet is, you know, good and bad. It's you know, you're going to have bias in there, you're going to have bad actors, but you're going to have lots of interesting, good information as well. So we get a question a lot from our clients, which is, you know, well, what does it come from? How can we trust the data that's coming out and hallucinate and so on? Well, the answer's kind of in between. It depends on the model you're using. You can find it tuning for your own purposes, but ultimately it is the internet. Other interesting note to point out is it can trained on things like Reddit, which we find a great place for early stage information and insight. But Reddit have recently blocked access to GPT and others because they're seeing the value of this data themselves. Therefore, newer versions won't have to pay for it, which might have an impact on costs going forward for credit cards and so forth. Just keep that in mind that it is the internet, but of course you can have your private local large language models, and they can be fine-tuned to your own purposes with your own data. That's not me, by the way. So important point to note that it's not just GPT and OpenAI. There are lots of other models. This is changing rapidly. There's a few of them going here, also very good. Anthropic, with Claude, and they've done some interesting stuff in terms of token window size, meaning less hallucinations. And some of these things are starting seeing the light in the next sort of 6 months. You're going to start seeing more of these kind of come to the forefront. Obviously, GPT's got a massive advantage in terms of speed and a route to market, but these, I think the next 6 months is going to be more about these other models. Hugging Face, if you haven't seen it, is open source repository, lots of open source communities in there. And Red Pajama just yesterday, these are all weird sounding things, aren't they? With some names. And they opened up a 7 billion parameter large language model for open access. So don't think it's just GPT. Obviously, it's the market leader, but that may change. And then we've got, of course, this guy. It's going to sing for us. Was going to see. All right, he's basically saying AI 40 times in a row from the Google I/O conference about 2 weeks ago. They're going big on this. They have generative search. They're doing partnership with Adobe. They're doing typical Google play of just putting out tons of products to gain market share back from OpenAI. And GPT, who are, as you probably know, are backed heavily by Microsoft to the tune of at least £10 billion, which may be the investment of the century, frankly, in my mind. But Google are taking that approach. This guy, on Tuesday in the Apple Worldwide Developer Conference, didn't mention AI once. So interesting, right? So Apple are taking a different view of this, which is peace and love. No mention of AI, mention of machine learning a few times. But obviously, as a business that we all work with, is important. They're taking the security first, let everyone talk about AI, let everyone kind of strap around for it. We're going to jump in probably down the line and take the market. But again, that's my view. But at the moment, you're not going to hear Apple saying AI currently, which I think is interesting in terms of their placement. Right. Okay, prompts. So you've probably all done them. Prompting is the language of AI, and I think really the main reason why it's been so popular so quickly is because it's a small text box as it stands currently. It's easy to understand, and it is like programming with plain English. So my view on prompt engineering, I think, if I were in the audience and if I were part of the development teams, I'd be very much keen on being involved in it, but I don't think it's a long-term play. Because I think these engineering kind of tools are so easy to get to grips with that I think prompt engineering as a thing is kind of go away quite quickly. But it's very understandable, very easy to use. You might have seen some of these around. 99% of the internet are doing ChatGPT wrong, including this guy with the moustache. You've seen this everywhere. Everyone's doing all this kind of stuff, and there's lots of noise around everywhere. If you're not involved heavily into it, go and experiment by all means, but avoid these guys, particularly with the iPad at the top. Don't do that. Use cheat sheets. We've got a whole bunch of them. If anyone wants some, happy to share. Things like defining your role, learning from it, using personas, chaining are really useful. And actually picking a use case early is good as well, because you can experiment. I think with a use case in mind and the proper steps to take, makes it much more powerful in relation to prompting. So feel free to give me a shout. I'll happily share some of those. And I would recommend, if you haven't, there's a few courses come out very recently. Google launched one, 7 different AI and generative courses yesterday, and Microsoft have got one, but this one's really good. So I would take a note of this if nothing else, if you haven't seen it. And this is an hour-and-a-half course. It's a little bit heavy when it comes to development. You don't have to get involved in development, but it shows you the chaining and the inference, talks about few shot and one shot learning, how the whole thing kind of works, and you have it from a slightly more technical perspective than just generally a prompt perspective, and it's really helpful. So I highly recommend you look at this. And it's free, it's an hour-and-a-half, and we've got no affiliation to it, it's just really good. So I'll definitely have a look at that if you want to have a good course for understanding what prompting is about. Right, what can it do? Wow, quite a lot. Summarising the content, the creative, ad campaigns, marketing, automation, and these are things that we're doing pretty much all of. Analysing prediction, predictive analysis, workflow automation, of course, and code piloting. So it's almost easy to say what can GPT generative not do. Doesn't mean to say it should do it, but I think it's important to know that it can do. So I want to show you a few examples of things that I can share. So the experiments we've done, some things we can talk about high level with the clients we're working with. And I think it is all about experimentation, to be honest. It's quite new still, you know, anyone who says it's more than 7 months old, unless you're working for those big companies, it isn't. It is only that much time that people actually play with these tools, generally speaking. So here's some examples of things that we are doing. If you, I think I've got a robot complex, to be honest. If anyone wants to calm down, there's a chat GPT generated by our good selves colouring book for agency execs. Feel free to jump on it and customize these in. Has anyone ever seen art directors that hover? Remember that? It's like people hovering over you and afterwards. That's the robots that hover. Slightly similar. But build it in. We've got a whole bunch of these little PDFs we're doing for our clients, but if you want one, let me know. We're playing with lots of experimentation. This is all, by the way, what you're seeing is all generatively generated from tools like Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, ChatGPT, a little bit of Cohere, and some open source stuff. All those that we're testing and putting together for some of the brands that we're working with in e-commerce, some that we're testing. They're all kind of generative, and we're doing some A/B testing on products as well. All generative based that we're actually just tweaking in terms of from the studio as well. So lots of things around creativity that generative as a whole is really good at, and really good at ideation. And of course, it can help with campaigns, with analysis, with social sentiment, and loads of interesting things like that. Working with some interesting people in some art projects around housing and so on. That's kind of an interesting one we're working on. I can't say too much about that one, but that's coming. We're also doing some tests. So it's interesting. This is so at the beginning of the year, Adobe and I think it was Getty Images and so on, we're all having different views of what they would allow in terms of generative. Now we've done a lot of tests on a lot of the stock photography sites, and these are images that we've created generatively that have been launched live on Adobe stock. So that's kind of interesting. So there is a lot of conversations about copyright and IP, of course, and where they come from. And just to note that across most of the stock photography sites and areas, you are seeing a lot of generative. These are things that we've come across and we've done. So there's a bigger grey area. I'm sure some questions around that, but it's worth mentioning that that is happening. Of course, things like Firefly are being used a lot at the moment in enterprise, which is the Adobe generative piece of technology. And that is much more for just making sure that you are using 100% copyright free or usable images. But again, it's a moving piece, things are moving very quickly, but we're testing this out quite a lot. We're doing loads of this work, you know, testing these things out, working with our developers. This is what I did, just testing these out a month or so ago. Could I recreate Linktree with generative ChatGPT and Replit? I did it in about 10 minutes with a prompt. See there, creating a site like Replit with a one-page landing, make it accessible, available, and set these things. So it's really powerful, really quickly. Now we're doing some much more complex things than that. But again, if you're testing and experimenting, so many things you can do, and coding being one of them. And it is helping some of our guys, probably 15–20%, I think, in terms of sort of speeds to test. Not every developer likes it, but our developers are using GitHub, Copilot, and Replit as well, those writers. Very powerful. And we're blending loads of stuff. We've got about 20 of these. We're doing a bunch of Chrome extensions. We've got future image generators. We've got business model canvases, all being generated by GPT and the tools. We've done a few little fun ones. Your GPT expert, Dave, not forgetting with the 10,000 hour rule. If GPT was launched on the 30th of November 2022, no one's an expert until 2027. If you're 100 hours doing it. And this is my favourite, agency income tracker for all the agencies in the room. It's just a small little tool that we've got, which updates your current income per day, per second. And I use that far too much. But feel free, these are all available. I can send you links if you want to have a look at it. Yeah, thanks. Just a quick one about text to video. So a lot of time spending in and around text to video. There's some really interesting tools out there, Runway and L in particular. And here's an example we get to show you how that could work as a little campaign. It's not that good, to be honest. Yeah. I don't think it's possible. Yeah, just very quickly. So this is just text to video. I think this was literally, again, my apocalypse fetish. Is a bunch of scenes through Runway ML, which is a brilliant tool to use, which I think I've got it on the link at the end. It was in beta, but launched to everyone yesterday, or this morning, I should say. So Runway ML, have a look at that. And this is, as you're used to doing text to image or text to text with ChatGPT or Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, you can now do it with video as well. And there's a fascinating space to be in actually around video and using those tools for campaigns. A few other things we're doing, again, sorry about the zombies, working with some brands on that, and just ideation and A/B testing on kind of arresting images. I do a lot of summarization, again, around content, SEO, keywords, using content more effectively from multiple different types of social media, and using that kind of capability to increase people's output, basically. So anyone you're working with, in terms of designers or developers or copywriters, you're able to do a lot with the same time. And it should be something that you should be keeping an eye on with your clients, because if they haven't already asked you, I understand these tools, it's time to use them, why aren't you coming to me with kind of better workflow and automations? You're going to have a problem in the next few months if you haven't already. So just a word of caution. Some other stuff we're doing, I can't talk too much about, it's really interesting. So that was the kind of more high level stuff. We're doing a lot of work in large language model fine tuning for some large organizations. And that is simply put, sort of taking their existing data, vectorizing it, putting it into the vector stores and embedding it, and then pushing it out as in different kind of ways within customer service and knowledge base. We're doing a lot of work in that space. So feel free to give it a chat later about any of those. Because that is a direction of travel for us. The creative stuff is brilliant, the workflow stuff is excellent, but the LLM work is really interesting, which is giving people, brands, the ability to have their own large language models and what that means for their data and their automation and their internal teams and indeed their business and revenue. Doing quite a bit of insight analysis as well on the same note across some of the social channels, and doing a few really interesting projects in Web3 generative for large attractions, and that is around loyalty, token gating, generative over time and Web3. So lots of interesting stuff. It's a fascinating space, really enjoying it. Right, a few examples and then wrap up. So some other things that we've seen that are kind of interesting. Would anyone drink an AI beer? I'll would. I wouldn't. What you're seeing and what we have seen a lot over the last few months is brands doing guided AI, I would call it, which is being very safe about what they're doing and doing a small test. So I think there's 300 beers in case and we've got poisoned by AI. And again, some of this is PR based, but it's interesting that the brand and the size of the brands that are using this technology and tools already. And there's loads of these stories over the first 2 quarters. What you're going to start seeing in these next 2 quarters coming up is more real use cases and real cases of ROI and revenue generation and cost saving. Coke have gone heavy on it as well. They've created a platform with Bain, the consultancy. I did a co-creation piece in March, which was I thought quite clever. It was using creative economy, 100 different designers to create brand extensions for them with their official Coke assets. That was really interesting. They've done some adverts. You might have seen the museum one recently, which wasn't really strictly all generative AI, but part of it was. The Coke have gone big on it, and lots of other brands are doing similar stuff. Again, great PR stories. IKEA, I wouldn't sit on any of these, by the way. But they are have been training data on old product data set from the 70s for new product development and ideation and production. So you can see where that's going in relation to potential ideation, then A/B testing maybe, but they're putting out the products. Adidas, this is interesting. This is customer loyalty for generative, and this is about one-to-one marketing, which I think generative is brilliant at, and that sentiment and that analysis of information. So they've gone heavily into younger demographics, who understand Web3 and work with it, and they've given traits, and generative is helping those traits over time in their loyalty program change, whether it's by lifestyle, music, fashion, whatever you're into, and that helps to develop new products, helps people to be more loyal, and ends up generating revenue. So that's a brilliant use case. We're doing a bit of work in that space too with the attractions we were talking about earlier. Just another couple. This is great. So not just the big brands. This is a fantastic one. This is Jack Butcher, who runs a business called Visualize Value, who's a solo entrepreneur, and he is using his community and giving them IP as well, and giving them shares, if you like, in the brand itself, and developing that over time with them. Creative side and revenue-wise, this launch, I think, in February, March, did more than Nike's last launch. So there's money in, not just big brands, but small brands getting it right in terms of connecting loyalty and using the tools in the right order. I think generative is a big part of that as well. Really interesting. I don't know if we've got sound on this.
Can we get the sound working?
Friends down to pepperoni restaurant.
Where first I'm talking about.
Our definite pizza with heart and special touch. Cheese, pepperoni, vegetable, and more secret things. Need delivery? Pizzas come fast. Knock knock, who's there? Pizza magic. Eat pepperoni hut spot pizza. Your tummy say thank you. Your mouth say, Pepperoni hut spot. It's like family, but with more cheese.
I want to go there. So that is, isn't it? That was a couple of months, went viral. Obviously, it's a bit shit. But you can see where it's going. That's all texted video, a bit like I was showing earlier with my zombie version. But again, it's fun now. It looks like a tool, but these tools are getting better very quickly. And you're going to see, I would eat my hat if maybe not this year, but next year we can in advertising festival if several generative campaigns weren't winning gold. I really would, because I think the tools are right there now. Maybe even this year. So yeah, something to keep in mind, but don't need the pizza because it's probably probably right. Make it rain. I don't notice. Is it too subtle that the AI is a different color? Sorry.
Yeah, it's very simple.
Ignore it. Every time I see an AI, I'm like, oh, what's that? Right, a few bits about revenue and brands and so on, of what we see. So this is a study that we've seen ours. Just a quick one, 100, it was on Digiday, 100 agencies. Who's using generative AI? 71%, it's quite higher than that now. Brands, I think that stands out from the brands we talked to. Everyone has heard of it, but not everyone's using it. So 44%, sort of seems high, but maybe about 50%, I don't know about you guys. But certainly everyone wants to talk about it. And from the workshops and the talks and the learning, the training and the project that we're doing, I think that's probably shifting up quite quickly. So good to be on top of that for sure. Areas, of course, things which we mentioned before, as you'd expect, research, copy and content, obviously quite big, marketing, video, audio, a bit nascent, so a little bit less of that, only because of timing. Data management in terms of area, very important for businesses, but because it's complex, you need data audits, you need security, you need to understand where that might go. That's a little bit less in terms of the areas that are being used currently, but that's going up. And the people that we're talking to certainly is AI in terms of policy and where it might go in terms of their business, I think is a massive growth area and something we're focusing quite a bit. But I should expect that's what that is. That was the one from McKinsey I saw that was interesting around the impact of use cases from a commercial perspective. Again, using those tools, generative tools for lead identification, marketing optimization, outreach, and obviously content, as you'd expect, not just creative, but also workflow, also analysis of the current data, understanding what data looks like, and then what you might do with it around kind of marketing and personalization. And generative is really good at that. It's a great study, and if anyone's heard of Polanyi's paradox, that is in large organizations. This was a brilliant study over a peer-reviewed research study. 5,000 team members over about 18 months using generative to help them in customer service within the customer service area. And it was between 0 and 35%, but 14 was the average. And it is helping to solve the language paradox, if you haven't heard of it, which is the idea that we know more than we can tell. And that knowing more than you can tell in large organizations is it doesn't help with their productivity and their bottom line. And I think that from this study, what was being proven was low performers can upscale very quickly with the help of generative. High performers continue to perform highly and codify knowledge, but middle management has an issue. And I think all of the information around that we're seeing about the jobs going, the millions of jobs, I think in that middle band of middle management where people hold on to information, certainly large organizations, you don't have a problem. I think that is an opportunity, obviously, for people who are doing that. So I think that technology is going to solve this quite quickly and already has. So I think that's a very fascinating study in terms of work and automation. Just a couple more to wrap it up. This is interesting. This is Grimes, the music artist. And you may have seen these last month, there's quite a few of these around Drake. A lot of people doing generative work, which wasn't from the artist. And Grimes, you know, I thought was fascinating. And the death of copyright, forget copyright, forget about music. If you create something, I'll 50-50 share it with you, and we'll be IP partners together. Now, it might say that's PR fun, but I think that is actually the beginning of the movement, to be honest. I think down the line, certainly with IP and co-sharing and creation, I think is a massive opportunity. So that's interesting, just in entertainment. And it often starts with music and then rolls out from there into enterprise. We do other stuff as well, and we've seen certainly 3 times, but definitely between 3 and 5, using for the same amount of designers, developers as well, products, you're upswinging it by 3 to 5% for the same cost. And if your clients aren't asking about that, they're going to, so get on top of it. But we're seeing a lot of that. So if you haven't reviewed that in terms of your value as a business, and it isn't necessarily products and product ideation and creative, but it might be copywriting, it might be SEO, it could be anything, you know, anything agencies you do. I think if you're not on top of it, get on top of it, because your client's going to start asking about it down the road. Right. I've got a God complex. That was a big journey image. I think it said singularity. So phenomenal. Anyway, right, challenges. I'd be remiss not to mention a few. Regulatory, there's you may see some of these, there's tons of these around. I think starting with the UK, I'm not being overly political, but I think they've probably got it about right, which is unusual for this government. Regulations are coming, but they're taking the right touch just to get themselves back up to the top table, which the UK need to in terms of AI. The EU is going to have a massive act, probably take 2 years to go through. There was a big hoo-ha this week about labelling, which is, you know, it could be very hard to come up with that. How do you output a label? That's generative. I get it for images, but what about the rest of it? So lots of conversations around that. The US Senate was fascinating. I think a couple of weeks ago when a very old senator started using voice and generative to prove a point. But I was interested. So yeah, lots of regulation coming. Doesn't mean to say that it's going to decide on innovation. Copyright and IP was mentioned. I think there's lots of conversations around that. But lots of tools are coming out. You know, lots of the large agencies, WPP and NVIDIA just did a deal. That's going to be interesting. Obviously, big enterprise creatives like Photoshop and Adobe are going to use official images, and there's going to be lots of ways of approving copyright and IP, but it's going to be tricky. Bias is a tricky one to solve, to be honest. You know, the data goes in, it's crap, it's going to come out crap. But again, yeah, it's a bigger question. Don't have the answer. Just going to have to keep an eye on it and try and fine-tune our own models as well as we can to counteract that bias. And hallucinations, if you haven't heard the phrase, is when GPT and others go a bit haywire and start being racist and sexist. That is a technology issue, which is solvable. I've already seen, and that is down to the neural networks and how good they are, how good they're becoming. And around context windows and size of models and size of those tokens. So that's a technology problem. I think that goes away within a year. And that's my view on that. Right, quickly, I won't call them all out, but these are some of the tools that we're using on the high level. Obviously, we're doing a lot of work with LLMs themselves on the more kind of development level, but these, take note, or ask about those. We're using these on a daily basis. Some brilliant ones in there. Runway ML from video. Remember that one? That was the one with the pizza ad and the zombie thing. really good, but these are brilliant. So have a look at some of those if you haven't already. I'd be remiss not to mention. I'd be remiss not to mention AutoGPT. Big news a couple of months ago, still going, not production ready, but in essence, if you're thinking about generative on this level, it's kind of level above. So it's basically Agent Smith and the Matrix with lots of generative agents all talking to each other without you, which starts to get a little bit scary. So you're going to hear things you haven't already, terms like AutoGPT, AGI, Baby AGI, and tools like Pinecone and LangChain are all things that we're looking at and working with. But again, not to get too heavy on the dev stuff here. Keep an eye on those this time, if not already here. Right, it's happening, just finishing now. So, in our view, and sorry about the GPT on the right, so general purpose technology, which generative we feel is, only comes along every 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And by general purpose technology, we mean steam, electricity, the internet, making mobile. AI is that, and generative is part of that move. And it is political, social, technological, behavioral, and the changes happen. So I know you're all here to listen to it, and it's great that you are. I hope you use it in your businesses. Keep on going. It's early, so we're not too late. But it's a big opportunity, which Andy's obviously as well. I'm Roy at synthetic80.co. If you like this, if you haven't, it's John at Ask Bosco. You made it. Well done. Thank you.
Sorry about the sound challenges, but yeah, save your hard questions for Roy, all those sort of things that you're thinking, well, how's that going to impact this? How's that going to impact that? So we're going to hand over now to Leo, who's going to talk about some bad bots that are costing us all a fortune. So welcome to the stage, Leo.
Hello. So yeah, tough act to follow for Roy's presentation on AI. So this approach will take a slightly different angle into the AI in the world of bad bots. So what do I know about bots? I've been working in the bot security space for over 6 years, 15 years if you include typing bots in online data. So marketed by day, Hannes, artist by night. You can ask me questions about Hannes after the presentation. So quick disclaimer, I don't have a PhD in maths. And this name actually came from the back of speaking to a software engineer, where I went to him with a couple of prompts from ChatGPT, super excited about it, saying AI is radicalizing everything right now. And he's there working on his computer, kind of like the Matrix. He looks at me and he says, that's just maths, bro. So in the end, machine learning AI is just mathematical probability. So that's actually a photo of me, my first encounter with advanced bots roughly 15 years ago. So playing a game called RuneScape, which is a very kind of repetitive online game back in the day. And I built my first bot, which used Pixar color detection to then run repetitive actions. So you won't be surprised that actually after 2 weeks, that bot got banned, and I got banned from the server fully entirely. So that is what we call our generation 1 bot. We'll cover that in a second. But before that, bots are taking over the internet. And if this stat doesn't scare you, hands up in the room who works in marketing or works with web analytics platforms. So when you take into consideration that nearly 50% of that traffic is invalid, I can guarantee you that Google is probably only filtering out at least 10%. And we'll cover into that data in a little bit more. So this stat was actually pulled from a giant cloud security firm called Trello. Out of that 50%, and this is taken into consideration good bots, search engine crawlers, bots that you typically not exclude from the traffic. The majority of that is actually malicious bots. So people using traffic for malicious intent. And we managed to categorize this into 4 generations of bots. The first off, you have your vendor bot, who uses basic automated scripts, cannot identify a bus in a capture for a flight. This is where we started maybe a couple of years ago, I'd say 30, 40 years ago, so bots that can't even execute JavaScript. And then you have Headless Nick, marketing's worst nightmare. So Headless Nick, because this bot uses what we call a headless browser. So headless browser is when you're able to browse the web through a software on your computer without going on Chrome or Firefox. The reason why this is scary is you can actually run thousands and thousands of visits onto a page through a simple software or script on your computer. So you can actually browse the site and load JavaScript and source cookies without actually navigating the website as you need. Generation 3, we get a little bit more interesting. This is where we are right now, what the majority of advanced bots are. So malware, McG, these kind of bots pose more of a security threat. They can use malware and take over your computer. They simulate mouse movements, so they use some very basic machine learning algorithms. But the main concern is Generation 4 AI-powered bots. So we've got to the point where we're practically facing the Terminator. So we've seen this a lot at Lunia, where these bots use evasive techniques to avoid detection, but most importantly, they're persistent. So every time we manage to detect and block one, the same bot will come back with maybe a different user agent, different IP address. It will just adapt to defense mechanisms. So it uses what's called a low and slow attack that allows you to blend into website traffic. So you're only able to spot a discrepancy maybe 12 months down the line when you realize that maybe there's something wrong with the web analytics. So it's not just bots in the invisible space that I'm concerned. Sure, we've all seen fake profiles on social media or LinkedIn. So generative AI is taking over the social media space. So what you're seeing on the right is a conversation, a real conversation with a bot using AutoGPT. So again, another show of hands who's had an automated message across social media. Picture that at scale, where you're actually speaking to a real person in real time, but that is done with malicious intent. So if it wasn't for the cryptocurrency project, I'd probably fall for that. So we actually came up with the conclusion that invalid traffic isn't actually a security problem, it's a marketing black hole. It's a marketing black hole because for every $5 spent, $1 is wasted on invalid traffic. So that's roughly 20% of any online budget is wasted on traffic that never converts. And the concern that barely scratches the surface. So when we dig into the data further, we realize that as the internet is getting more automated, as platforms are using more machine learning, we end up having what's called a negative feedback loop, where we're ingesting bad data. Machine learning algorithms then use that skewed data to then attract more invalid traffic, which leads to wasted spend, and that leads to wasted time. So 20% is really a bare minimum of how much of your marketing budget is currently being wasted. So that takes us to one of our most important points of this slide, which is your analysis of anything that you do is only as good as your data. And we've seen this with the launch of ChatGPT. So when ChatGPT came out and started spitting out a bunch of funny responses, that wasn't a problem with the algorithm. There was a problem with the data that was being sent to the algorithm. So all OpenAI did was restrict how much data is being ingested, but there was no significant changes in the actual algorithm. So the good news is a bot will always be a bot, no matter how it hides. And this is exactly what we do at Lyra, and we'll cover it in a bit more detail. So we use machine learning to pretty much identify the invisible. So on the left-hand side, you can see a typical picture of your Google Analytics dashboard, but that could be any kind of Google Analytics dashboard that you go through. And you typically see a pattern that fluctuates based on whether people are visiting your website during the week time, during the weekend. There's always certain consistency there. Now, when we look at the back end of any weblog server, you will see the difference between what's actually human and what's invalid. So here we're pulling some data from a customer, and we can actually see that from that data set, roughly 20 to 30% of those visits that you're looking at Google Analytics are actually not real. So we do this in 2 steps. And again, this is very much core to how machine learning and AI works. So the first step is actually understanding the features. So in any AI algorithm, the first step is always understanding what are we actually looking for. So there's a big misconception that you just create a machine learning algorithm and you put it into how to do whatever it should be doing. But actually you do need a bunch of smart people that has to understand, okay, what is the data that's actually going into this for this to actually work? Otherwise we end up with an algorithm that just doesn't work. And what we've done here was we've actually pulled through hundreds and hundreds of click statistics. And we look at things like, does a visit have a user agent? Can the visit load JavaScript? Does it come from a legitimate browser? So we run this against the model, and then we try to find what we call clusters of bad behavior. So on the right-hand side, you can see that everyone that has scored roughly 100 is considered invalid. So that is the first step, which is identifying the features. And then the next step is the fun part. So we use what's called a deep neural network, and it's very similar to a virtual brain. So think of a virtual brain as having multiple neurons. What we do is we ingest that data. So the traffic data would be the first layer, and then your neurons are the features that you've just detected in the first slide, which is processing that data and understanding, does that traffic actually match the features that we've identified? So to really make an algorithm work, you have to prioritize the data that you're. So seeing it is believing, and nothing brings us more joy than seeing some of these stats reflected, not just in our own platform, but on the client side. So this is an example with Tray.io, who are worth, I believe, just over $1 billion in the B2B SaaS space. And aside from the cost savings and speed metrics, I really wanted to actually focus a little bit more on the vanity metrics, or what we call in marketing vanity metrics, which is the type of behavior that you would typically expect to see on the website. So things like how long a user takes browsing your website, or the overall bounce rate, your pages per session. So if any time you actually log into Web Analytics and certain data points are not making sense, look back into that data set and try to understand whether there's data that should be excluded from that. And that's exactly what we've done with this slide.
Leo, sorry, can you put the mic towards you?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. So the slide would not be complete without a QR code, otherwise there wouldn't be a marketing. But the overall takeaway is the road to efficiency will always start by eliminating what doesn't work. So if you do scan that QR code, it will take you to a blog page where you can access an article that covers an AI-powered funnel. And the AI-powered funnel is a combination of ChatGPT prompts that you can use to ingest competitor data and product benefits to understand what actually is working and how to display such competitors in the space. And thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Yeah, I would recommend having a play with that. We at Bosco, we recommend, because we're trying to predict where you should be spending your money, but if we're predicting where the bots are spending your money, then it all goes and amplifies out. We always recommend cleaning up all your traffic before we then optimize it and predict what you should do next. So, right, Dan, up next.
How are we doing? I'll joke that you said Dan up next, my name's Dan Sevens. I'm going to hold this really close to mine, literally like Iron Man. Ready for 3 people that joke. This shit one's not so fun. Quick one for me, if that's okay. Could everyone just do a bit of a favour? Could you just all stand up? Stand up for a second. Okay, it's really just for me. This is a yoga, yeah. Could you, I don't know, if you breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. That was just for me, because I've had a hell of a day getting it. Can you do another thing? Could you look up? So if you look up, can you smile? And can you go blah, 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 blah. Thanks for seeing how far I can take that. And then can you turn to the person next to you and say, I like you. Oh, yeah, sit yourselves down. I just did that thing for the fun. Also, because I wanted to prove I was real, and we're all real, aren't we? We're human beings, and so we all talk about AI and bots. And by the way, that's a scary conversation about bots. And so I'm slightly scared. My sides are really shit. The point being is really we're all human beings. We're all different, of course, and we all have emotions and vitality. And also, I don't know, I had a bit of a time getting here, so I just need to change my own energy anyway. Right, so we've all talked about this whole mid-journey shenanigans. We talked about how AI is
increase in how great it is now. But we've got to remember, version 1 really was very, very bad. It wasn't anything all sorts. It was terrible, yeah. But now, pretty amazing what it does, yeah. So where are we now? Well, this is the other thing. There's loads of AI startups, absolutely loads of them, like literally thousands. Can I remember the Martech? Was a great sheet that this guy produced. Yeah, exactly. Right. Can you remember back in the day when I first started, it was like 1,000, and now it's something like 12,000 or 14,000 of these things. Most of these things, I think now will use AI in some respects. Yeah, most probably. It's like 14,000 SaaS tools you can use. The thing is, most of this AI stuff is just the same technology underneath. Okay, this is what we've suddenly found out. Well, this is the case. Yeah. Now, has it got better and better? You know how good it is now. We know how good. I mean, is it Anthropic? I don't even know how you say it. Anthropic. Thank you. I use it. I don't even know how to say it. It's the tokens now are insane. It's a huge amount of information you can now use. Yeah. This is basically showing that it's now not only passed its doctorate, or so to speak, it's better than doctors. Yeah. It's also actually showing that human beings, about 60% of human beings prefer the bot than the actual doctor because they think that the bot is actually more empathetic. Isn't that worrying? But also, if you're a stressed doctor, you've only got 3 minutes. But the chatbot's got forever, yeah? So of course it feels like it's more empathetic. Anyway, it's not really the point. But the point is this is kind of where we might be heading. Yeah, you think about where we are now, where we could be heading. It's a bit more scary than you think. This is, but did you download? So really, busted. That's fucking brilliant. Sorry, we're all grown ups. I didn't realize we were live streaming. Sorry, I saw. But yeah, you can now. This is a generative AI girlfriend. Obviously, you did it for work, so I understand that. That's fine. Yeah, of course, yeah, fine. But there are other ones out as well. But there's someone in America. This is no word of a lie. Happy to put their days ago. Is actually married their boyfriend, their AI boyfriend, because they believe it to be almost perfect. But of course, it is. The freaking algorithm is meant to, this is a response. Of course, it's almost perfect. I was going to do a stand-up thing about my daughter comes in and says, "Oh, I found this really amazing guy." I'm like, "Darn, it's a hologram." But yeah, he knows me so well. Hey, it's an algorithm. Just a beam of light. Oh, don't be so this, Dad. You don't know how much I love him. There's a whole fucking thing to do about it. That's where we're going to be going. We're going there now, though, yeah? So why is this key? Well, if you don't do this, you don't prioritize your life, then somebody else will. My point being is that I was going to go on the BBC this morning and talk about AI regulations, saying we're doing okay at it. I was a bit anti Rishi Sunak in one of my posts, and that made me stop being on the BBC Breakfast this morning. Because they went, "No, you can't come on." And I was like, "Oh, you saw the post, didn't you?" "Oh shit, sorry." But I wasn't being anti him. I wasn't being anti the government. I was just saying, what the heck are they planning to do? All the big people have already met. Yeah. So what the hell are they doing? He goes over and says, "Hello, I'm from England, and we decided to." Have you? What the hell are you going to do to stop AI? Anyway, point being is the next generation. I always put my daughter on the side. She's 18. There's loads of these. No. Here's the thing. We're now in this world where AI experts are now predicting the end of the times. Yeah, and I don't know how you can say his name either, but he's brilliant, by the way. He's now working with Stephen Bartlett. I'm not sure everyone's a fan of him, but he's Google X guy, and he's saying that actually don't have kids now because we need to be panicking so much. And then you have the other side of the spectrum, where again, people who I think are legends, a little bit non-PC sometimes, Rory, but legends in the marketing world are saying the exact opposite. They're saying people aren't going to use this, it's going to be crap, and no one's going to use it in marketing. So you've got to think between those two, where really are we? Well, the reason why it's so scary or so exciting is it took telephone 72 years to get to 100 million people. But it took ChatGPT about 72 days to get to 100 million people. So you think about that from the epoch change, talk about the fourth industrial revolution. We're on the fifth industrial revolution now, so most people don't realise we're there. It's already happening. Yeah. So government's going over and saying, "Oh, well, maybe we should stop and regulate it." It's already too late. It's too late to do all that stuff. It really is too late. Anyway, who am I to say so? Well, I did a TED talk in April 2022. Was that right? Yeah, in last April. I was talking about AI. I was talking about all this different stuff that's happening, and I didn't realise it was happening this quickly. It's astounding what's happened. Yeah. A very blurry image. This guy here is called Dennis Habless. If you're very geeky, you'll know who he is. If you're not, don't worry. He was a better image. There you go. There's Dennis. There's Dennis now. That's Dennis, his 40th birthday guy. That's Dennis now. Dennis is was the owner of DeepMind. He's now topping Google. There's the Google chat next to him. And obviously that's the American board all talking about stuff. This happened a couple of months ago. And now we've got Rishi Sunak going over today and saying, "I'm going to talk to Joe Biden." The chat's already happened. It's already been done. Yeah. Well, so I do get the joy, as thank you, John, for before saying that, saying this kind of stuff on the BBC. Yeah, I do, that's good, and it's fun to do. But right now, I'm always the positive guy about AI because of the massive opportunity. People are misunderstanding the power they can now have. This is like having, I don't know, your own electricity factory, your own ability to create power instantly because of this machine. You can do your work times 10, times 20 because of this. Now, some people say, well, it's not that stuff and it hasn't got the nuance, it's not that clever. But it will be, and I'd argue, most probably is now anyway, it's just ego's getting in the way. So I'm normally guys who've got to talk about, will AI take your job? Yeah, I think it will. It's going to take a lot more jobs than what we think. And a lot of white collar jobs, a huge number. But it's going to be done so in a positive way. It doesn't have to take your job. AI will not replace you, but somebody using AI will. That's what I want you to remember for today. To start using it yourself, get ahead of the game. This is exactly the same as, I know, being a factory worker and suddenly having bionic arms so you can move more stuff. I don't know what the examples are, but you're literally times 10. As a manager, everything AI will help you. Yeah. So what do? Well, I used to run around the country doing marketing talks and training people in different stuff. The reason why I say that is this is the next level, right? So because AI gives you the chance to do almost everything, the next currency is going to be around trust. Okay. Not just can you trust the image that you're seeing, but can you trust the person who's saying it? Do they have the narrative? Are they really good at what they do, or is it just AI being good for them? Now, that might not make a difference in your lives in marketing, but in general, it will. So be careful, as we rightly said, be careful of some people who call themselves AI experts. If you're saying you're an AI expert, you can be, by the way. I've been talking about AI for 15 years. Doesn't mean I'm an AI expert, not in this next bit. Yeah, but also you can really worried about expert anyway. Experts are someone you should always be worried about. Think about being entrepreneurial. Yeah, experts only know about old ideas. They know about the future ones. They'd be entrepreneurs. They'd be doing it. They wouldn't just be experts. That's something I believe. Anyway, so how else can I talk about AI? I promised I'd be really quick on this bit because time restrictions. Well, okay, I go around the country talking for larger brands like Kellogg's and other folk. I wrote a book. This is the fun that I didn't write the book. Of course, I didn't write the book. The AI system wrote this book with me, co-wrote it, and then guess who edited it? The next version of AI, a better version of AI, then edited it. That's a nice little fun thing. There you go. We use it with Your Flock. My co-founders at the back. Hello, have a chat with me now. We use a lot of machine learning rather than AI. We got a grant from Innovate UK. Your Flock is an employee feedback platform. Which then can use machine learning to get cleverer. In fact, we're about to launch a really cool thing. I think Johnny will be looking at this afternoon. That utilizes AI as well. Because of course, team dynamics, psychology, that kind of space. That's kind of space where we really can get a lot of value. You can also do lots of marketing. Of course, you can. Well, brilliantly saying all the different things it can do. Yes, it can do all the marketing. It can do it amazingly quickly. I would argue, however, for people in this room, AI is a tool to help you with productivity. It won't make you better at stuff. Okay, AI is about a C grade at marketing, in my opinion, at the moment. Yeah, it's okay, but it's not great. It doesn't do great marketing, but it's okay marketing. Your clients, of course, are going to want great marketing. So don't think, AI, oh great, I don't have a job. You might be happy with the fact that you can just do it through AI. Maybe you're doing that right now. And also maybe start thinking about the future AI and things like digital twins and about Agent GPT. Start thinking about that now. Think about how can we start to clone ourselves and our abilities so we can become better and better and better. That's a real, slightly deep thing to think about. But I think that's actually where the kind of special sauce is, the ability. Now, if you know that AI isn't going to replace you, but someone using AI will, then you also know that if you start creating your own AI, then you're ahead of the game. This is talking about LLMs and starting to look at your own data sets and your price data. Also, big one on this one. Do not use ChatGPT. Okay, if you're using that, it's like talking to a 16-year-old, and that's no bad thing talking to a 16-year-old. But if you're entrusting your recruitment or your marketing to a 16-year-old, you've missed a trick. Yeah? If you're not training GPT-4 on your own data, it's like having a 21-year-old intern, but you're not training them first. Yeah? It's the same principle with AI. If you're thinking this thing can take over the world, yeah, it could. Yeah, you think it can take over my job? Well, it could. Yeah. It's not likely to. It's much more likely that you'll be the boss of AI or your own AI. And that's really the way we've got to be looking at it. That's the reason why we've got to look at it is for the next generation. It's for my daughter. It's the reason why I do these kind of talks. we have agency now at this moment, as Roy Wright said, you know, this is early in this moment. If we allow massive companies to do it all, then I think, to be honest with you, we're going to be in trouble. Small businesses, and when I mean small businesses, I'm talking about not just Microsoft, not just Google, not just, you know, those big people, those big companies. If they control all of this, we're in deep trouble, because that's now allowing them to, you know, I mean, run electricity or the water companies or other things this fucking government did badly. You know, that's why I'm not allowed on BBC Break was talking about this morning. Because that was my post. I mean, imagine, why would you do that post? Been asked, and then why do you do that post? It's because it's right. The thing is, we've all got to control our investors in this, especially as agencies, especially in Manchester. We've got a chance to do something amazing. Start looking at how you can use AI in-house as quickly as possible. It's not technically that difficult to do either. Yeah, because I think they're either going to create licenses for this stuff, which will stop you doing it because they'll make it very expensive, or the massive companies will just shut the doors. Remember, it's all been free until when? When do you think it stops being free? When they get the data. Do they need you anymore when they've got the data? Most probably not. So even though I'm normally the positive AI guy talking about this great things, talking about this other stuff, I'm going to leave it with a slightly odd note that the opportunity is now, but I don't think the opportunity is going to be in 2 years' time. I think they'll change the game. Just like they do with everything. You know, you're not allowed to have your own electricity pylons, or you're not allowed to have, you can't even make your own gin, for goodness sake. The old story about gin and Founders Gin. But there you go. Oh, and then the last thing, ending on with booze, not just because I can drink a pint in 5 seconds, we've talked about that before, but I think with marketing, I don't think AI can do that. I don't think AI can do something as genius as that. Yeah, I think that creative thing, but I have also a feeling, and I might be wrong, that might have been made with generative AI. I'm not 100% sure. Doesn't really make the point, does it? Doesn't really make any difference. They could have used AI. They didn't have to still be geniuses. And that's my point really at the end is, think about how you can use marketing to accentuate and to increase and enhance your genius and creativity that way around. And also to do some of the grunt work that you're now not going to do anymore. Because that's the opportunity. So yeah, my name's Dan Sodergren, and well, to say, it's more about your blog today, right? Have a chat with Michal. I've got a cold, so I'm going to have to leave after this. But Michal at the back will talk to you about our stuff that we're doing. I hope that kind of explains my viewpoint, at least on AI. I want to leave this at least with a good note rather than a bad. So so give it a go as quickly as you can if you're not doing it already. Thanks so much for your time.
Right, we're just going to have a quick 5 minute. We've ordered too many sausage sandwiches. You all need to have another sausage sandwich. We're going to have a quick 5 minute break. Then we're going to get Emily up. Then we're going to do the panel Q&A. So quick toilet, coffee topper sandwich, and then back here at 7 minutes past 10, please.
I don't know, Charlotte, it's Charlotte. Last night,
Every time.
Absolutely love it. You're like me, got mum case.
Yeah, well, otherwise you break your phone when you talk about, which happens frequently. And say, for some reason, well, you know, this thing's like, okay, I hardly ever works.
My mum, my kids say to me, oh mum, mum case, no chance. No chance.
Yeah. Okay. Facebook phone, that's great. Touch ID doesn't always work for me. Right, oh, really. I don't know.
So useful thing.
You should expect.
Yeah, I didn't get my driving license. I think I've got a photo.
Yeah.
So how do you get in here when you ask them like?
Director of a recruiter.
Okay.
AI is. It's just basically trying to understand.
I think it's as good as the questions you ask. But you still have to have a creative mind. But that could change.
I agree.
Well, I got asked to come here by my friend who lives in London. And I'm taking her place at Lodge. But I've kind of worked in the creative industry forever. And I've worked in something tech for myself. And at the moment I'm working for myself.
Yeah.
Because I kind of decided, your partner decided we didn't want to work for any of the bad boys. And so we hooked up with an engineering company that's medium size. And they want to save the planet by reducing energy. Using the Internet of Things to monitor, I mean, really boring stuff. Photos and alternators, stuff that kind of keeps the industry going. It's like it's been a massive learning curve, but it's really interesting.
ESG is massive. So that will bring us true. I'm not going to punch. You're going to punch, aren't you? So
That's me.
I've been, I agree.
yeah. Right, it's probably been for 10 years. I've never been like this.
I'm sorry.
There's like it gets forward.
Right then, shall we jump back to
In
it?
the back door, but then it seems that at some point, I worked for Lambinaires when I was very, very young. So can you remember this real platform in blue?
It's a good.
Yeah, just like it'd be nice to have a chat with people, just.
It's always very lively event.
That's what I've been told.
Lively.
So hopefully you're enjoying the content and you're learning stuff. We will, any of the links mentioned or softwares mentioned, we'll send around. So you don't, feel free to take photos, share them, do whatever. But I remember the first time I saw Roy speak, I was a bit like, blind, I've got a lot to go look at when I get back to the office. So we will share all of that. So I'm going to welcome Emily onto stage. Emily is our Director of Product and leads a team of PhD. And I suppose Leo's point is all these different AIs, you need clever people to make it work. So Emily's got a team of PhD data scientists and data engineers and developers that connect all this together. But we're going to try and give you some real life examples of what you could do, but it's not a product demo, so don't panic. That's not the purpose of what we're trying to do today. So over to Emily, round applause to Emily.
Hello, so I'm Emily. I've worked the last decade in marketing and then technology, but I'm going to go quickly so we can get to the question, really. So, as everybody has said in the previous talks, AI is everywhere and it's been in the news everywhere for the last few months. So I'm pretty sure everybody here is aware of it. That's why we're actually even here together today, and that's why we're having this meeting. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It's everywhere. Ask Bosco is our marketing technology platform, and it's our product that uses AI to help agencies and brands take control of their marketing spend, basically. So the whole point of Bosco is to use machine learning and AI to take a bit more control back from big companies like Facebook, Google, and everything, everybody like that, basically. This is about not being an ostrich with your head in the sand. So ironically, this was actually created by AI. That's kind of the point. So don't be an ostrich with your head in the sand. I think it's time to wake up and actually see how we can use different AI strategies within our businesses to speed things up, make things more efficient, and then actually make a difference with our targets and what we're trying to do. AI, as Roy already spoke about in terms of copy and images, you know, we've seen some of the not so good and some of the good AI content you can get out there. But what I'm going to focus on is data and how we can use AI to help make better decisions with the data that we have. We all have too much data. There's just too much, different platforms that everybody's logging into, different access to data. I mean, how much time do people, I suppose, in this room spend looking at data? I know we've got some recruitment companies and think in terms of all the data that you're looking at, all of LinkedIn, Facebook, all of the profiling and things that you're doing of people all of the time. There's just too much. Everything's expensive as well. My online shopping habit knows about that. Really expensive. It's getting more expensive, but also from a marketing point of view, CPCs are getting more expensive. You know, we're not as efficient as we used to be. And obviously Leo was speaking earlier about all of that money that the bots are taking from us, and there's always an increase in cost of sale. That's not ideal because we've all got bosses who want a better cost of sale, and we've all got bosses who want us to be more efficient, and we've all got businesses that want to make more money. Typically, Facebook and Google are taking about 75% of all of spend from a marketing point of view. And that's quite a lot. They dominate the market. I mean, if you're not on the first page of Google, you're not anywhere. That's what people say. Well, when was the last time anyone visited the second page of Google? I don't think I have, ever. So, yeah, like you just don't go there, do you? It's an unknown destination. And then obviously Facebook advertising as well. We all have Facebook profiles. You think of Instagram as well, you know, all of these platforms, they're all attached. They're all the same bank accounts, YouTube, Google, Facebook, Instagram, it's all going to the same place. 25%, we've got here, we need to look at our numbers afterwards. You have 20%, we've got 25% of marketing spend is currently wasted. And less than a third of marketeers have an attribution model that is robust and that they actually trust. I have multiple calls every single week with different agencies, different businesses who are all looking at a different number in terms of what is the actual number of money that you are making, what is the money in the bank. It's never the same. getting everybody on the same page of that as well can be a bit of a political nightmare. So having a good attribution model that you trust really helps with any kind of AI strategy. I think, you know, some of the guys were talking earlier about the data that goes into AI, you know, it's only as good as the output is only as good as what you put in. So having an attribution model and having everybody aligned to the same goals is what you need, really. And 70% of brands and retailers are more focused on traffic, not conversion. So it's about where's that next customer coming from? Where is the traffic coming from? If that traffic is all bots, as Leo said, you know, we need to be cautious of that and actually thinking about how we can make more money for our businesses online. Which click wins? So this is the question that we ask Bosco, and our teams ask Bosco every day. Where you should invest basically to make more money, to get more money back. So this is, I'm not going to take credit for this slide. This wasn't AI created. This was actually John Redman created. His favourite slide about that. So where should you invest your next pound, dollar, euro, all different currencies to make more money back online? I suppose that's how we're using AI to help our business and to help other businesses. But I suppose our take on it is that it's a complex puzzle. It's perfect for AI. It's a question that can be asked of a computer. We believe that humans are terrible at predictions. I mean, obviously. Yeah, that was a very bad prediction. Even on that note, I mean, there was an octopus that made it onto TV with the predictions, wasn't it, the World Cup or Euros or something like that. We actually put our faith in an octopus more than like our own judgment. That's how bad we are at making predictions. But machines aren't very good at judgment either. So that, I suppose when I talk about this, I always think the story that I tell is, because I've worked in marketing for quite a long time and I actually started as a marketing person. Black Friday, I'll never forget it. It's like, obviously over a weekend, it's like the middle of the night. I was actually at a client's site and we weren't, it was game. We weren't making, we weren't hitting our target, what we should have been hitting. So everybody's there, you're up all night. The traffic, the site had like gone down for the first few hours of Black Friday, as you know, typical nightmare, everything else comes back up. So we had, you know, we had everything in place. We'd used all our scripts, we pulled all our Excel documents together, we were posting, bidding online. Then the CEO just came out and just said, oh, I'm going to slash all of the prices by this much or something. That, like, no AI machine could have predicted that this was just a strategy that we were now going with. So everybody's there having to pull everything together, customize everything, create everything and get it back up and running from a platform point of view. So I suppose, like everybody has said, AI is only as good as the data that you put into it, but it can't predict a CEO in the middle of the night changing the plan, which I think is quite regular sometimes, John. So yeah, machines are not good at judgment. So obviously that was a judgment decision. It's a change that was made, and then obviously all of the humans had to react to that in that situation. So what we think is the future of AI agencies and brands is actually collective intelligence. So accurate prediction and informing judgment. That's our little Bosco robot saying hi to everybody there. We think let's leave the predicting to the experts, which would be the robots in this situation. However, optimal judgment that leads to action is probably always going to be better from a human perspective. You're always going to have a different strategy, especially if we think about how AI is going to make things and the bias that Roy was talking about. If everything is AI, we kind of become the average of everything. So we're always going to need a little bit of that human touch in order to differentiate ourselves. And I think the businesses, brands, retailers, people who are going to do the best out of the AI movement are the people who use AI to streamline, make things efficient, but then also have, you know, strategists within their business that can pick things up, explain AI to people, but then also add, you know, our extra human touch on top just to make things different. And that's the differentiator. Thank you. And then with my Bosco.
Can I invite the panel up, please? So, personally, I think Dan mentioned it before about Stephen Bartlett. Personally, I'm not a massive Stephen Bartlett fan. I know that's a little bit controversial. I find him a little bit condescending sometimes. But he does get amazing people on his podcast, some really good. And this one, if you haven't listened to it, takes everything we talked about today into a much deeper level. And again, we'll share the link to that, but it's both exciting, scary, and if what we're talking about today doesn't prompt some action, listening to that will prompt some action. Not only about what you do at work, but maybe just generally about your existence on the planet. So, so we've got some questions, but what I'd like to do before we sort of get into the pre-loaded questions, you always have to have a few questions in your back pocket in case everybody just sits there mute. I'm going to try and encourage some questions from you guys. So I don't know who, and again, you can pick on somebody, and we'll pick it just generally to the panel. So I suppose, anybody got any questions they want to ask? Yeah.
Yeah, happy to sort of do it more generally to the panel, but although it's a really interesting slide of the bicycle and the kind of warning in the newspaper about it. I can't imagine many people in the bicycle trade left the profession and said don't have kids because we're worried about what will happen with bicycles. But we are seeing some quite extreme warnings about AI. And I've started watching that Stephen Bartlett into actually. I was just wondering what areas you agree with all the doomers and where you disagree, because I've been generally seem quite optimistic this morning.
So what areas people agree with, what are the positives and negatives?
Yeah, where you agree with the people saying it's terrible, it's really potentially very bad, stop doing what we're doing, stop having kids. Where you maybe think that they do have a point, and where, but why ultimately, or if and why you disagree.
I'm going to take a bit of that first, and then we'll. I think sorry, it's not your job ever share. But I think the reason Google said they weren't going to stop is because they can't be confident that other people will stop, and ultimately that's going to come down to humans being greedy and humans wanting to look at very selfish interests. And ultimately, if you look at like why a war's happening and why all these other things, it's humans are messing it all up. The AI won't mess it up, it'll be humans that mess AI up. So that doesn't help answer the question, but might help frame some context. So you want to pass the mic first?
Because you asked me the question. So yeah, I'm on the positive side of it, but okay, so there's two couple of this. Number one, the people are saying please slow it down. Sometimes they are ethically, as in Google did slow down because they thought it might have gone sentient, and then the actual thing almost took them to court. So that was a weird moment for them from a PR point of view. Then the other people are saying slow it down, like Elon Musk actually then went and bought loads of the kit to actually make his own. That's actually the reason why he most probably bought Twitter as well. So he's saying slow it down because he's losing. So that's a deeper one. Yeah. And then from a country point of view, which I know we should look in globally, look how far ahead China is in this, and they've been ahead in AI for a very long time. And they are now. It's just the fact that with OpenAI, we opened it up and that gave it the ability to suddenly become manifest and come to China. If on the negative side, if it's already going to be evil and already going to kill us all, it's already too late. So there's no point. You might as well enjoy the sunshine and just have 2 years left or maybe 30 seconds. It might be sentient now. So my point is, the reason why I'm always so positive about it is because the other side of it, you have no agency over anyway. You can't stop it. Doesn't matter what Rishi Sunak goes over and says, no matter what any of them say, because if the whole thing is AI is bigger than us all, is it really going to listen to the politicians? Surely it's going to say, well, where's my electricity coming from? Where do I need to hide now? And by the way, this could happen 2 years ago. So the similarity could have happened 2 years ago anyway. So, I would think, have children, have fun, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy life. That's what it's about. AI is actually about making your life easier and better so you work less, not so you're more productive. So enjoy the fact we've got this moment rather than be worried about the fact we have another one. If that helps.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's we might be in the singularity already. This might be a simulation, right? We don't know. In Manchester, the Manchester.
Is that really Manchester?
It could be. I'm going to set them off. I can't agree with all the sentiments. It's a tricky question, isn't it? Because the cat's out of the box, right? Whatever we do at this point and regulation is going to be, it's too far down the line. It's 2 years before. Look at social media and how long that regulation has taken. It's still not going to They just do what they want. And unfortunately, unfortunately, this is a big tech play. But I do think, however, that the open source side and that community, that movement, I think is going to counteract that because we're seeing it already. And it isn't just Google and Meta and so on. But these tools are going to helpfully push up ethical AI a little bit more into the agenda, which will help policy and government and so on. But ultimately, it's down to human beings, isn't it? technology isn't inherently evil yet. So it's a tricky question to answer. I'm not a maximalist. I'm very much aware. I've got kids, and I'm like, wow, where's the world going? But again, just on a personal note, my 16-year-old is doing an AI project right now, and my 12-year-old, I'm teaching them the tools right now, because you have to be aware of them. You can't do, I think, as Emily said, the ostrich just isn't going to work. So you have to embrace it either way, because if we don't, you really are going to have, you're going to be in financial trouble, political, social, behavioural trouble. So embrace it, but be aware that there's challenges, and it's nothing's perfect, but lean into it.
I share a slightly different opinion. I think we're still very far from AI being sentient. I think for a couple of reasons. So the first one is, if AI is as advanced as it is, we'd probably all be billionaires if we can forecast for financial aspect, like where to invest, what we should be betting on. And I think the main limitation with AI or machine learning is it can look at the data historically, but it can only predict that next step. And it's very much based on the data that you do ingest it. So I think that the scariest we've gotten to so far is things like AutoGPT, where you have data from an AI source feeding to another AI source, and you have this back and forth. But that's all it is, a back and forth. So AI is not at the point where it can say, I now want to create this other data set, which is completely rogue, and follow on from that. So I think as random as we want AI to be, it is still very much ingesting a little bit of data and producing something that is based on that data set.
Just to, I suppose, finish, I completely agree with the sentiment earlier, and that's kind of the side of the fence I sit on. The only thing I would say is I feel like we're the lucky ones in the room. We are learning about AI, we're aware of it, it's part of our job, it's going to be part of my job 100%, probably now for the rest of my life. But there is, where our governments and people need to step in, is there are going to be a lot of jobs who don't know about it today. They don't, I went to an event a couple of weeks ago and everybody got very focused on bus drivers, but there's a whole group of people who don't know that we are in this next phase of development within, global development, and, it's going to impact them. So that, I think that's where our human side needs to step up and make sure that there's people who aren't left behind necessarily in this big development process. And hopefully, if we can remember that as humans, then there's all the opportunity that AI brings should hopefully benefit everybody, and we should be able to spend more time with our children if we decide to have them.
Anybody got any other questions?
Yes.
Vanessa?
All I can see is disparity. A very interesting point here. AI is not going to take our jobs, but people using AI are going to take our jobs. And if it's already the cat's out of the bag, where are those people who understand AI? Where are they right now? Okay. So that's all I can
Should we take that and take these? Have you got a view on it?
Yeah.
There are the people who understand AI, how do we get them? I suppose take that a stage further is, how do we train or find them or grow them within our business? That could be an extension. If they don't exist in Manchester right now, what do we do?
Because we've got SMEs that don't really embed their culture, values, mission already. How they're going to suddenly start harnessing AI?
But from my point of view, and so just from a real day-to-day point of view, we use machine learning and AI at Modo 25. I don't think we are in the UK or even agencies, we're all kind of catching up. We're trying to learn, we're trying to do the courses that Roy was mentioning and things like this. Like, we are, I suppose, a bit of the catch-up generation. I think it kind of goes on to what you were saying about your children as well, in terms of getting them in now. I think it's going to be like the next generations of people who actually grow up with it. I mean, I think everybody does older people say this is a phone, and if you ask like a 3-year-old now what a phone is, they go like this or like this, because that's how they talk on a phone and things like that. So you see development through generations, and I think it's actually, I look at the people in my team, and we have some really, clever, smart 18, 19-year-olds who joined our team, and they use ChatGPT, and they have way better than what I do. Like, for things that I wouldn't have even thought that you could do that, and then like, oh, look what I just did, and I was like, yeah, didn't think of that one, did I? And I was supposed to be helping you learn ChatGPT, because they just think in a different way. they have, I do think the younger generation have, you know, I think they value their time a lot more than maybe previous generations. So they're going to find the quickest and the best way to do something. So I think that they will be the natural adopters to AI, and the rest of us will catch up, and there'll be some really clever people as well around.
Just a quick one, really. You don't have to be clever to use it. This is the thing. It's nothing to do with coding or being clever. It's just having an inquisitive mind and being curious and practicing. You know, we're very lucky because we're using it at York Flock. But it's not a complicated thing that we're doing. What we actually do at York Flock with the AI is complicated, but the actual, it's in Slack as well, Slack integration. It's just asking questions and getting information back. What I'm saying is with this thing, I'm sure everyone would say, anyone who's tried it with GPT-4, the reason why it's so good is because it's just English language, which is the coding ability. That's all it is. It's just the prompts that you use that get things out. So you're saying, how do other people use it? You can be 86 and use this just as easily if you were 18. And when you ask, well, where the people are using the deeper side of AI and machine learning, yeah, that a lot of that is in India, has been for a while, because we outsourced a lot of things as well, if you remember. This is only a few years ago, of course. And they're very good. If you actually look at where a lot of the big tech company, the races of those people now is no longer white, it's actually, it's more Asian than it is white. And I think that's because we've spent 20 years teaching them to be really, really good at coding other stuff. But for this next jump, you don't have to be good at coding. It's not a coding question. AI now means it's the great thing. It's just the English language. In fact, any language now, isn't it? Really? And there's actually a deep point as well. If you want to know who might win the AI war, it might be the Chinese, because actually the way the Chinese language is created means it's better for AI for machines to understand because of how it's pictogrammatically created. There's a cheeky thing for you. You could Google it, or you could ask GPT for it.
Just one other point. I think the education system in this country needs a massive overhaul. And it's got kids and some very young people as well in the room. But not far out of school. It's shit. Honestly, the IT and computing. So fuck me. Really? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I'm teaching my kids more about what to do and how to use it than in school. That's what the problem is in this country, frankly. Not being political, maybe a little bit, but that's a massive problem. I'll just get on real quick. But it's important, isn't it? Because the narrative needs to change. At the moment, the last 6 months, there's such a terrible way to say arms race, if you want to put it that way, about this whole AI. And actually, if you step back a little bit, yes, there's challenges, but it's already happening. So embrace it, move into it, learn the ethics of it, but learn how it works. So that is STEM, and people being scared of it, and the drop off in STEM across education for young kids. It's massive. And that's the opportunity here. And I think that's a generational opportunity that if we miss this one, we've got a problem.
I'll just add to Dan's point that you don't have to be an AI expert. So most of us, including myself, I'm no AI expert, I'm an AI enthusiast. And there's a big difference when you speak to someone who's interested in AI or presenting as we are versus the people that actually build the algorithms. So if you do want to speak to an AI expert, I'm sure some of our senior developers would be open to having a conversation, and you'll see a very different level of enthusiasm and depth into the conversation. Yeah, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
I just thought I'd share. So so we've got our in-housing agency side of our business, and we employ copywriters and people who teach people to write SEO copy and all this sort of stuff. And there was a genuine reticence to embrace this and teach it and learn it. So what we did, we put up prizes for use of AI, and we put up cash. All right. So we said by department. Yeah, there's a £250 prize per team for the best uses of AI in your day-to-day job to make you better at what you do, keep your clients happy, and ultimately make you more efficient, more effective, right? And almost everybody in the company entered something, so much so I couldn't decide. So we had a first prize and a second prize in every team, and it was actually one of Emily's we did what was the scheme? Kickstarter scheme. So we took a lot of people out and got jobs straight out of school, and we've trained them up, and one of the Kickstarters actually won one of the prizes. And she's, oh, well, every time someone asks me anything on email, I just paste it in ChatGPT and ask it to what should I do? Well, why wouldn't you? Yeah, we're all sitting there, oh, how do I respond to John when he asks me that? Well, I said ChatGPT.
Doing it the business way, slightly informal.
Yeah, and so I would I wouldn't necessarily go, I suppose to answer your question, it's not necessarily going looking where they are. How do I get my team who I employ now to embrace this as an opportunity to move forward, rather than necessarily seeing it as, right, we need different people. Right, you've got people, the people need to learn how to use it. It would be my view. So I say the other thing, we've all got two choices here. Do we do more stuff? Right? Do we do more stuff? Or do we do the same amount of stuff and have more time? So I suppose I want to ask the question is, what's everybody's view on how, if you're running an agency, should you use this? And I don't know, we work a 4-day week and we pay a full-time salary. And we're very proud of that. We're the third best technology and market company to work for in the UK, as voted for by the Sunday Times. So, but it's more about people, I think, and the opportunity that AI gives us is the opportunity to spend more quality time rather than sitting in late at night doing those pivot tables and all the hard stuff you're trying to do to get those reports ready. But that's just my opinion. I'd be interested in everybody else's, anybody in the audience is, you're sat there thinking, right, I can get everybody just to work harder now, we can be 40% more productive. Or you think, well, actually, we could have more fun. So I don't know, who's got a view on that?
Well, I work at Modo 25, so I like to work smarter, not harder. So if we can go to a 3-day week, that would be great.
We also recently moved to a 4-day week, and we have experienced a 3-day week last month. 3 weeks, 3-day weeks. Yeah. And I think AI doesn't just have an impact on speeding the output, but also reevaluating the strategy. So what we started doing is really polishing our messaging and our go-to-market strategy by ingesting the product positioning, competitor information, asking AI to find gaps within that strategy. So I think that is kind of like out-of-the-box tactic to be using rather than just focusing on outputs. So evaluating the first bit, which is the why we're doing things.
Yeah, so we've gone to a 6-day week. I'm such a capitalist. I'm a nice person, really. So yeah, agreed. It should absolutely, it's human first, right? Always human first. It shouldn't be, we've got these amazing tools, it can automate stuff, therefore let's get loads more outputs done at the same time, right? Obviously it's a balance. But I think with the workflow, it's interesting because as we're all experimenting with, I think John mentioned, replying to emails, some of that really kind of low-level stuff, we can really help with that, and that's definitely helping. Some of the automation, some of the finances in the business and the workflows we've been testing as well, very interesting. Definitely the creative output I talked about a bit on the chat. It's definitely, but again, it's important not to be quantity over quality. So just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. So I think that's really important. And then from the clients that we're working with, obviously, as you'd expect, lots of questions around, well, what does it mean? Should we use it? Are we going to get sued? Is it secure? Where's the data set? Is it all onshore or offshore? How expensive is it going to be to create our own LLM? All these other things are all just questions coming to us. So we're using our kind of knowledge and ability further down the line, I guess, to, yes, make them more productive, but to actually calm things down a little bit and say, look, the technology's here. We should pick the right use case and be narrow and try and pilot first and MVP first, and then build it from there, I guess, as a business. So it's a bit of both. There's definitely productivity gains, not to the detriment of humans working in the business, but for clients, it's helping them to do a better job, basically. It's just technology. And it's the technology itself is great, but it's only a catalyst for growth. And growth doesn't have to be just monetary, right? It's human as well, human capital. So that's why important.
Yeah, no, I mean, with your flock, we do a lot of work with values. You can work out your 9 different values of your different businesses, and that does create a culture map for your company and can help people stay in your business for longer and help each other. With marketing creators, we notice that teamwork's a really big one from a values point of view. Not always the case with accountants and lawyers, in fact, autonomy is more important than law. But marketing creators, what I'm trying to get to is this human point about values and motivations. Yeah, a lot of people join marketing agencies because of the culture, because it's fun, because we work together as a team. This allows you to do that more. So you say your 3-day work week, your 4-day work week. Well, actually, it could be the fact that 2 of those days are amazingly fun, or 3 of those days are amazingly fun, because actually most of the hard grunt work is done by AI and machines. Remember things like, I remember when Excel first came out, and everyone said that's the death of the accountant. It's all over. No one's been working figures anymore because Excel's so amazing. It's true. They didn't get rid of those industries, did it? So AI is no way going to get rid of marketing. It doesn't mean that you can have more fun at work. Yes, Does it mean you have a better life-work balance? Yeah. Does it mean you might be able to do 3-day work week? I mean, I run my own business, so fuck no, there's no way that's happening. But that's just it. But when you get to a certain level, yeah, why not? Why not? If you're really successful, you've got a great culture, you've got great people, something comes along, makes people more productive, spend more time in the park, spend more time with your families, spend more time without families, spend more time making families. That's going down the wrong way. You've got the wrong area, sorry. But the point is not, and don't do it at work, it's an HR issue, isn't it? No, the point is that you can have a lot more fun, can't you? Now this is around, and I think that's the bit you've got to kind of grab hold of. No, not just, you know that fun's more productive, don't we? We know that better cultures make more money. We know that people are happier at work. In fact, the most important person is not your customer, it's your employee. So we know this is the case. So it's not a hippie thing that I'm saying. It's just a better way of living life, which is no bad thing.
So we've got time for one more question. We'll go, let's go ahead. Oh, ladies.
Yeah, it's fine. To quickly end on a non-work note, ask them to ask AI in your personal life.
This isn't actually me, but my partner has decided to ask ChatGPT to write his best man speech for his friend who he's been friends with for like 25 years, and then started to have a conversation with ChatGPT about, so like was basically said to ChatGPT, please can you ask me the best questions about my friend who I've known for this amount of time to write the best man speech. Then ChatGPT, they were like having like an MSN conversation, like to get to know each other, and then has wrote a speech. I don't know if he's going to use the speech or not yet, so I don't know if anyone else in the room will know what ChatGPT is. But you know, it was okay. It was a bit cringe, but it was fine. Was the speech? He read it to me last night. That was good.
I actually sort of business with a new products and service we're doing. I did actually just last week ask about the traits, the human traits of a good co-founder. So it is around business, but I was actually asking, we're planning something and to be announced TBC. But I thought that was interesting, and it says someone the opposite of you, I imagine. It could have. But that was interesting. That was a human thing. And I sat there, and I do use it. Obviously, use it in business, but it does becomes interesting. There's a lot of healthcare use cases as well. You've seen that. I think someone mentioned about the doctor being trustworthy. That's interesting. I did also ask how to hide my internet history. That's a joke. If you didn't have said, I know what it is, sir. The police are on the way. My one was originally going to be about dating, but I'm not going to do that one, so I think it's a bit early. There's lots of psychological tests you can do. Anyway, not just about matching. Anyway, but the other one actually is around dietary stuff. So I did use it because I do low carb, high fat. So I did use it for like, what's my next week's worth of food and what should I do? And this is what I've got in. What can I make? And it just went and did it instantly. Just a quick caveat though on that, and it's really important from a dietary point of view. Remember, this stuff is only as clever as the internet was, so to speak, and on the data set that it is. Yeah? But just be really aware, especially with young people, especially when they're using it for kind of as a therapist and actually using it for psychological help. That's quite dangerous. Yeah, because you're just presuming the machine knows. The machine doesn't know everything in the world. Yeah, now that's the data set. And the other thing on that is, especially in Snapchat, I think on the BBC talking about it, Snapchat especially. The AI that's inside Snapchat, it's terrible. Okay, it's really bad, and it pretends to be your friend, and it does weird stuff. So if you've got kids who are on it, or you're on it yourself and you talk to it, do not. It's a data mining trick to get you on side to use it more. It's really bad from a therapy point of view. A lot of people are using that at the moment, so just be really aware. So I'd say, dietary stuff is. But it did really good on it. It did nothing at all about the so yeah, so just dietary stuff really good at, but just be really aware that from a mental health point of view, be careful because it's not trained for that. Okay, it's just warning them. Sorry.
Well, mine's not as fun, but we mainly use. I think the last thing I used AI for was for data enrichment. So after ChatGPT 4 came out and we found out that it can actually crawl the web, we realized that we're paying for the software called Cognizant and Clearbits. Both pieces of software which are like £20,000 a year. You can actually import the data set, any kind of data set onto ChatGPT. So a list of companies, and tell it to enrich that company information with your revenue, your ad spend, your company size, job titles that you can go after. So you can ask it to plug all that data into a table, and you now have an enrichment software for free. So Yeah, I think data enrichment is one of the most valuable things we use it for.
You get to code the thing better and do the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah.
All those AI stuff, can't even, this thing really doesn't.
So quick tip for anyone here is if you do, especially in the B2B space, if you have, let's say, a target persona that you're going after, you can actually input in ChatGPT your messaging, your value prop, and then through a list of companies or job titles, you can ask it to create a USP per job title or per company. So it will do it for you. It can basically create a marketing structure.
It's also you also go on LinkedIn and then look at it and then say, this person's problem pain point would be this.
Yeah,
There will be this with this moment. And this is that person's psychology based on, you know, ENTPs and all the rest of it. It does all that for free. So you don't need crystal nose and all these other things. But anyway, you just need a really good prompt. And it does it all automatically for you. It's stunning what you can do. You can also use Bratcher and make your own version without coding. But that's a different point.
I think we're over time, so
I'd like, first of all, this is our first session in Manchester. Hope you found it useful, interesting. We will be back and do one of these. We also do them in London, and we've just launched in America, so we're going to be doing them over in the States as well. So I'd just like to say thank you to our panel. Big round of applause for panel. Thank you all for coming. If you want to hang around for a coffee and chat more to our speakers, or I might see some of you at Podge later on the roof terrace. We've got the weather in Manchester. So, thanks again for joining. We'll send round the notes, the slides, any links to software. We'll send the LinkedIn of everybody so you can connect and do all of that. And thank you very much and have a good rest of the day.
on your way out, help yourself to a nice Tosca. Everybody needs more books in life and a nice thing to help as well. Grab some, yeah.